here, guys. Back for The Dream is Free.
Yes,
we have a
sir.
special guest. Second time we're doing this. And, I mean, we talk every day, but it's nice to not have it at 5 in the morning. Mr. Graham, Aaron Graham, how are you?
I'm great, Michael. Thank you for having me back.
It's crazy having you here. Last time we did it, I was over there. My brother was over here. And we talked a lot about your life and you know, just your journey and what you did and what you're doing, which was and is super interesting. But we talk every day at the gym, and I actually do feel bad sometimes because whether it's before or after, I see at least 10 people talking to you in between me talking to you, and I'm like, gosh, I feel he's never gonna work out. But we do talk. You've put on my radar, and I want to say now, at least a minimum of 3 years ago. It could be 4, but I'm horrible with like time. Fentanyl, the fentanyl crisis, because we're gonna start with that, and then we'll get into the border stuff. But I've even since then, because now mainstream has picked it up a little bit, but in my social media, TikTok world, I even told you about that poor mother that was in Norwalk, I believe, whose son died of fentanyl overdose from a smoke shop picking up marijuana there, which, you know, everybody thinks fentanyl, and you'll get into it more, but they think it's, you know, maybe prescription drug based or, you know, cocaine or whatever. You know, that shocked me that it could be in marijuana. And, you know, I just want to dive into the fentanyl crisis and when it became on your radar and, you know, how it's developed since then.
So let me just take a step back.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
say,
of course.
Because I do want to jump into that, and I appreciate that we didn't do it the first time. You know, the first time we spoke with you and your brother Jake, and you know I was scared, right, to do a podcast, and I've told many people I would rather raid a cartel stash house with a pea shooter than do social media, right? It wasn't my thing. I was afraid being canceled is forever. But you guys took care of me. And so I'm honored to be back as your second time guest on the show.
You are.
And every morning when I see you, you know, feel free to interrupt because most of the people I'm trying to avoid. But
Okay,
as I tell Karen and many other people, you're kind of my daily inspiration.
Same.
Because we always have something to talk about that I feel like keeps me current. Because of stuff, the great stuff you're doing here, and you're telling about stuff I didn't know about. And then I have to go home and do my research. But I used to laugh about how I watch TMZ so I know what's happening in the world. But now I have you.
Yeah, now you have DTV.
You're right. And it's helpful to understand. And the other thing is because we do talk every day, albeit at 5 in the morning, it keeps me current on what's happening. And it's inspiring to know what's happening because, you know, I live in my own little world like most people do, but you have a much broader perspective. And so it's nice to be able to share those thoughts. And I feel so comfortable, and I'm learning more about how to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And I think today, as I was saying to somebody in the gym today about coming back on your show, you know, I don't have to have a solution. Nobody has to judge me. I don't care to judge anybody. But I do have 40 years of facts of how destructive substance abuse can be and some of the things that we're dealing with in society today. And so I love the idea and the opportunity to talk to you about what I'm seeing. Everybody gets to choose for themselves how they want to address it, what the solutions are. But the crises that we're dealing with, from fentanyl to crime to the immigration to the cartels, it's just so many issues, and I worry. Right? I just worry. I want everybody to be happy and healthy and be able to thrive. But there are impediments out there right now that are creating real problems for people. And I think if we can raise awareness in a reasonable way, people can say, oh, I never thought about it that way. So that's why I'm really happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah, me too, because, you know, you need people who are, you know, I don't want to say experts in the field, but as close to that, or if that, to talk about it. Because a lot of people that do talk about stuff like this are, in my opinion, regurgitating what they've heard, what they see, and they haven't really lived it like you. You know, you've raided places, you've seen cartels, you've been in there hands-on for, like you said, the past 40 years. So if there's anyone I feel like can talk about it, it's you. And I don't know if you see on X sometimes, whether it's like with Pat Bet David or Joe Rogan, I'll be like, or Elon Musk. One time I was like, I put your Jags, at Jags, whatever. And I'm like, this is the guy you need to talk to about, whether it was border or fentanyl. Cause, like you said, we talk every day, and you are, you're good at being even keel and being able to present what you know. A lot of people say, tell me like I'm 5 years old. So you could do it that way, or you could get more, intricate, which is, whoever you're talking to, that's, important as the person.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I think I can tell you my first level answer. And if you want to know more, I'm happy to tell you that. Mm-hmm. But if I don't stop talking for 35 minutes, you're like, dude, all I want to know is that second sentence. I should have picked up on that cue, right? But we do get into it, right? Some days,
yeah, we're talking
it's a
for
good
a
morning.
while.
We're at 20 minutes.
Yeah.
People are looking at the machine like, can I get under, dude?
Yep.
No, I'm going to use this as soon as Michael leaves.
Yes.
And not until.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's right. And so it's funny when you were just talking about immigration, for example, and I don't like the word expert, but experience, right? I remember when I was a baby policeman, I just graduated the academy. I was in the field training officer program, and I was working graveyard at the border. And we got a call by Border Patrollers, sun up, to go up and do something. I didn't know what the radio code was. So Border Patrol was looking for an assist. And we got up there, and there were 3 women crying, disheveled, beat up, and 3 dead men. So we're asking what happened. And these 6 people had come from Mexico to come into the United States. The coyotes had smuggled them into the U.S. for a big sum of money. Then they raped the women in front of the men, and they shot the men in front of the women. You don't have to experience that more than once to have it never leave your mind and to cause you to say, this is a problem, right? And then the women were taken to the hospital for treatment and then sent back to Mexico. Now, I'm not a political advocate for any side of this except a humanitarian approach.
Right.
None of this seemed humanitarian. And so it's those kind of experiences in my life that help me share when people say, what do you think about immigration? I think, well, I think it should be safe, and I think it should be humanitarian, and there's a way to do it. This is not it.
Yeah.
Allowing the cartels to do that to people.
Yeah.
So, so I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that because it's just experience-based. I didn't read a book.
Yeah.
Or steal somebody else's interview and now tell you about it.
Yeah.
And pretend like it's my idea.
Right. Exactly. That's why I always tag you in those, because I'm like, if I could get you there, then, we'll get you bigger. But, talk to me about the fentanyl crisis, when it came on your radar, like I said, and how it's changed since then. Yeah,
so fentanyl, as you know, is a Schedule II medicine. It's a pain medicine. It's a really effective medicine for surgical reasons and to treat chronic long-term pain for legitimate patients. But I think when it became a drug of abuse, then of course it got on everybody's radar. Then the question was, can we make a synthetic version of this, right, illegally? Because getting it from a pharmacy, from a doctor with a prescription is difficult. Well, let's just have somebody make it for us. And so it was 2 decades ago. And of course we saw that because that's the world I live in. But nobody was really paying attention. And then I think the biggest difference was there were 2 big differences. I think when it really hit the public didn't see it, but we did. Number one, they started mixing fentanyl in cocaine, in methamphetamine, putting it on marijuana. I remember when a good friend of mine, Chief Richard Conklin from Stanford PD, sent me a story, and 3 people were found dead in their car, sitting in Stanford, and it looked like there was some cocaine in the car. And he said, look, don't touch anything. I'm going to guess there's fentanyl in this cocaine, and that's what happened. And so we saw more and more people, they were using heroin, they had a tolerance for heroin, they could tolerate heroin, but then the heroin was boosted with fentanyl. Same with the cocaine. Of course, the idea was we'll cut these drugs with fentanyl. It's very inexpensive. We'll get a more powerful product. We'll become known as the best product on the market. But people don't know how to
they're not scientists.
They're not scientists.
Yeah.
They're clandestine criminals.
Yeah.
Right?
No Heisenbergs.
No. 0. And so it just became incredibly dangerous. And when you think fentanyl is 100 times more potent than morphine, and carfentanil is 1,000 times more potent, it just takes up such a small, less than a grain of salt
Yes.
to kill you.
Right.
And so a good friend of mine, Carrie Luther, she lives in California near Santa Cruz. Her son was the MVP of his high school baseball team, super talented. He kind of reminds me of you. He just an excellent athlete, but he was a poet. He was a musician. Everybody loved him. And so he graduated high school.
Tony's like, that doesn't sound like Mike.
He's working in the local butcher shop, and just everybody was his best friend. And he had hives, and they were going to watch Monday Night Football. And a friend had said, "Look," and he'd gone to the doctor. They were doing his blood work to get him a prescription to treat the hives and the pain. And his friend said, "Hey, here's something to help you sleep tonight. You take a Xanax and just take one of the squares of the 4." And that's what he did. And he was dead within a minute.
And was the Xanax
Laced with fentanyl.
And it was because he didn't get a prescribed Xanax.
The guy bought it online.
Oh, man.
And this was a friend. But the friend didn't say, "Hey, dude, I bought it for somebody I don't know."
Right, exactly.
But go ahead, take it.
Yeah.
You can trust it. And so he woke up dead. And so I met Carrie at a congressional hearing that I was moderating with Steve Murphy and Javier Pena from Narcos. And we were there to talk about the dangers of counterfeit medicines from a law enforcement perspective. But then Carrie was on a different panel, and we were all like wowed by Carrie, this story. Like, we couldn't imagine how she could tell this story about her son without bawling. We were bawling watching her. It's so painful. And this is just such a talented kid. And the guy who gave him the Xanax didn't know. And he didn't get arrested or prosecuted.
He didn't?
No.
Yeah, wow, I was going to ask you that.
No, and that's been one of the issues that law enforcement is trying to catch up with. Is do we prosecute people selling medicines that other people die from? And a common term that we hear today is overdose. So I'm here to say that people in that world, and the world I live in, we don't use the term overdose. We use the term poisoning. Overdose is when you typically take 2 grams of Mexican tar heroin, you can tolerate it, and you actually took 3 or 4. But with fentanyl, you weren't taking fentanyl to begin with. You were poisoned.
Yeah.
By a transnational criminal. So we want to have that conversation. And then you saw so many celebrities dying from it. But again, they weren't seeking out fentanyl. They were doing cocaine, heroin, meth.
And this is 2 decades ago, or you're saying recently?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, in the beginning, it was that. And now it has then transmorphed, if you will, into the counterfeit medicine world. DEA, my old agency, has really cracked down on bad doctors, bad pharmacies, what have you. So it became more difficult to get legitimate narcotics, prescription medicines. Immediately, the Sinaloa cartel and El Chapo started making counterfeit medicines with fentanyl in them. And the idea was, okay, this is a narcotics addict. They want the effect of a narcotic, of an opiate. Let's just use fentanyl. And sometimes my wife will say, "It sounds like you admire these criminals." No, it's not admiration. It's respect, right? They saw this void, this gap, this opportunity, and they filled it immediately. Well, that's clever. But the problem was it was killing so many people. But again, it comes back to people were without being legitimate patients, without prescriptions, without seeing doctors. They were buying OxyContin and Vicodin and Xanax on the black market. That's a problem. Now, nobody ever imagined the fentanyl piece of it. But as you mentioned earlier, these are not scientists. I was at a Narcos presentation in Savannah one time. Steve and Javi invited me down for their presentation. They had 300-something cops in this audience. It was awesome. And before it started, a couple of detectives from Savannah came up and said, we want to run something by you. I said, "What's that?" "We want to tell you a story about what we're doing." I said, "Okay." They said, "We're doing a wiretap, and we're on a guy who's selling fentanyl-laced medicines in the community, and the customer is saying, your drug's not that good. We had getting better stuff from this other guy." So he sends an email, which was part of the wiretap application, to his source in China. He says, "Dude, I'm losing customers. The stuff's not strong enough." Guy writes back, "Don't worry, I'll reformulate it, send it immediately." Next email was, "I've shipped the product, you should receive it shortly." Shortly after that, this guy received the shipment, started putting it out on the street, and people were dying everywhere. Because the genius in China didn't know how to titrate the fentanyl to where it was more effective but not deadly. It's an incredibly dangerous medicine. And so, one of the analogies that I like to use to hopefully get other people's attention on how dangerous this is and what impact it's having is 300 people every day are poisoned to death with fentanyl-related products, whether it be coke, meth, or counterfeit medicine. 300.
How quick do you die?
Oh, within seconds. And it takes 18 micrograms.
Yeah,
to measure
that's like less than this.
Less than a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I mean, put some salt on the table, put your strong glasses on, or use your iPhone to blow it up and look at it. Less than that grain of salt. And it's odorless. It's tasteless. And then when it's mixed into a counterfeit medicine that you don't know anyways, literally when Tosh died, the coroner told Carrie it was less than a minute. He'd already fallen asleep. So I guess the good news is you don't suffer. It's not, there's not pain. Just everybody else who loves you for the rest of their life suffers.
Yeah, exactly.
So the analogy I like to use, because I just feel like, how can we be losing 300 of our people, Americans, every day, and nobody's alarmed about it? Like,
I'm sure it's more too. It's just they're not testing for fentanyl.
It's such a good point, Michael, because the reality is, in so many small towns around America, they're not the autopsies. Well, it's a drug overdose. Put them on the ground. That's it. Check the box.
Yep.
They don't know how to test for fentanyl, and they're not going to spend any money on it. But I think we need to better understand it so that we can have a greater sense of urgency. And so when I tell people, imagine if a commercial airliner with 300 seats went down every day. How many days would it take before somebody said, we got to do something about this? Probably the second day.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about it with just like, how many have gone down recently.
Right.
Yeah.
But how about every day?
Yeah.
We would have a much greater sense of urgency. So it's frustrating, right? I know it's my own little world, so sometimes we're hostages of our own interest. But this is all of our interest, right? These are our best and brightest everywhere. This is tomorrow. This is our future. And they're dying everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's really frightening.
No, it is. I mean, what got me was that it's so small. It, like you said, less than a grain of salt, and it could be put anywhere. And my question is, who's the biggest, distributor of it? Is it the, one of the Mexican cartels? Is it China? Is it who do you see that's the one that's doing the most damage, I guess you could say?
So it's a really good question, and it's another one of those things that because of where I live, we've studied. But initially it came from China, and at one point China was the major source of all counterfeit medicines. And they've got a lot of really sophisticated scientists there, so it's easy to knock off medicines, to reverse engineer it, remanufacture it, and sell it. And we actually saw the fentanyl coming out of Wuhan. Now, before COVID, nobody ever heard of Wuhan. But what we saw was then the cartels got involved in manufacturing counterfeit medicines with the fentanyl. They were obviously sending the fentanyl to Mexico. Then they could smuggle it into the United States.
Easier than shipping
from China. Yeah. China already had eyes on it.
What cartels are?
Well, the Sinaloa cartel was the first that we knew with Chapo. But then the Gulf cartel in northern Mexico became the next big cartel for counterfeit medicines. And then we heard that they call it the Wuhan cartel. Scientists from Wuhan moved to Mexico to manufacture fentanyl. And so, I grew up on the border. I love Mexico to death. There's a small percentage of bad people. By the way, we have the same percentage every country does. So I hate when countries like Colombia and Mexico get tainted because they have a couple of bad people.
Right.
Because the rest are not. But when the logistics of shipping fentanyl to Mexico, you got to get it in. Why not just make the fentanyl in Mexico?
Yeah, it makes sense.
And so these scientists from China and from Wuhan moved into Mexico. They could get access to the chemicals there, and then they could make the fentanyl and then make the counterfeit medicines, all in one place. And so I would say today that cartel influence from Mexico is the most impactful and the largest distributor of fentanyl-laced and compromised counterfeit medicines into America. And then, of course, the cocaine all transits to Mexico, so it's easy to drop fentanyl and cocaine. And your biggest distributors, like we used to talk about the sources in Colombia, then the transshippers in Mexico, equally influential. And when I was in Mexico during my assignment in Guadalajara, we saw the shift of cocaine from Colombia through the Gulf into the U.S., to Florida, what have you, when President at the time, Vice President Bush put together the Caribbean Task Force, and it pushed about 80% of the cocaine trafficking to the continent of Mexico. And that's when I got involved with narcos, being in Guadalajara, and the cocaine was just flooding Mexico. And so that remains that way. And so now you can take your cocaine. The biggest source of heroin to the United States is Mexico. Marijuana comes from Colombia and Mexico through Mexico. So it's a great place to compromise the integrity of all of it.
What is cocaine usually cut with? Because they don't give pure cocaine. Obviously.
Well, out of Colombia it comes pure.
Oh wow!
Right? Yeah. It's pristine. And I mean, I always say to myself, and you know, I'm not a fair person to talk about because I don't drink, I don't smoke, I do this stuff. But so it seems silly to me. Like it takes everything I have to have a recent, you know, a reasonable conversation.
Yeah.
I don't need to be impaired.
Yeah.
So with that said, the cocaine coming out of Colombia is pure. But I always said, even if it's pure, you got people stepping on coca leaves in their bare feet with kerosene.
Yeah.
That's the manufacturing process.
I know I've seen it obviously in it shows, but like I've seen documentaries. It's dirty.
Why would you put that in your nose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it comes out of there pure, but they get to the United States, they just cut it with lactose, with milk sugar. And the goal, of course, is if I paid $100 for this ounce and I can cut it 50%, I made $200, right? But now I can enhance the power of this illicit drug hundreds of times with a small grain of fentanyl. Yeah.
And who's being like? Who are there? Like I know there's the Mexican cartels and all that, but are they selling to drug dealers here, like or gangs in America that are pushing stuff? Or because I remember when we talked about it, and I'm sure it affects everyone, this crisis, but it's typically people who can't afford medicine, right? That get kind of in trouble with this.
Well, there's I guess there's more than two, but let's say two primary targets. There's one people that were using heroin, right? They were already there using illicit substances. Then there were people who started experimenting with narcotics in medicine form. And the logic was, well, this medicine was approved by the FDA. It's safe. I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
And so we saw people raiding their parents' medicine cabinet. I mean, people did crazy stuff. People would look for open houses for real estate, and they would go only to go to the medicine cabinet and see if they could steal medicine to get narcotics.
Yeah.
And then you saw people sort of become addicted to narcotics, but they were never going to be the person to put a needle in their arm. They weren't going to go buy heroin. They're going to buy medicine. And then, like I said, when DEA became really effective in cutting down on bad doctors, bad pharmacies, bad hospitals, then it became harder to get. So the cartels were ready Johnny on the spot.
Yeah.
They started making counterfeit medicines with fentanyl. And so it really was, I always say there's a difference between the person who's having a hard time affording their medicine, a legitimate patient, and they're probably looking at a diabetes medicine or a heart medicine, not a narcotic. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And you need to know when you're buying a narcotic illicitly, that's a dangerous proposition. More dangerous than an AIDS medicine or a cardio medicine or diabetes medicine. Now, counterfeit versions of those are also dangerous, but the narcotic thing is different. That's a big risk. And so that's what we saw happen. And so when to answer your question about who's selling it, look, so many people in America, the gangs, right? The Hells Angels, the motorcycle gangs, the ethnic gangs, they're all selling narcotics to make money. And I was recently invited to become a senior fellow with a think tank in Arizona called the Center on Shadow Economics. And that is essentially, how is all of this crime stealing resources from communities? And selling narcotics, right, just makes people unproductive. And so now we're not being productive at work. We're losing money at work. People can't go to work. Stores are closing down. Communities are closing down. In one case I'm working right now, the Attorney's General investigator told me that they found a bodega, right, a typical ethnic Hispanic bodega, sells piñatas and spices and herbs and candles. Like I go there to buy my meat and herbs. Had sent $50 million to Sinaloa in a 2-year period of time. Well, they weren't generating $50 million.
Yeah.
they were laundering money for the cartels. So when it becomes difficult for the drug sellers to get their money out of the country, you go to people that generate cash business, they launder their money. So that impact on that community is huge. You know, they call it the broken window theory, that when things start to break down, entire communities go bankrupt. If the revenue from that business was legitimate and they paid their taxes on it, we can support our ambulances, we can support our schools, we can support our teachers, we can support our sports programs that we all feel so passionate about. But when all that revenue is lost to organized crime, the whole community suffers.
It's pretty intense, honestly. Yeah, it really is.
Really.
Who gets affected most by it? Is it low income families, or that range, or is it just everybody and anybody? And also, how has it increased? Being the poisoned. I don't want to say overdoses of the last, let's say 10 years or so. Has it gotten worse? Have the government, have we, gotten better at tackling these issues, or?
Well, the first question is a really good question. 30 years ago when I was a kid, if somebody was a heroin addict, they were probably African-American from a community who didn't have a lot of resources, and they found themselves being preyed upon, and then they became addicts. And then what happened was, when the pill form of the counterfeit medicines contained narcotics and substance abuse became a pill form thing, then we saw everybody got sucked into it.
Yeah.
And the thing that was frustrating for me as a baby policeman, I'll never forget the first day I rolled up on a guy who was in laying against a curb with a needle in his arm. Looked like he was dead. I mean, I'm not a doctor. He was Hispanic. I called dispatch, and the cops came out. First time I saw Narcan.
Yeah.
The dude had no pulse. They hit him with Narcan. He was back to life like this. It was like, it was a miracle.
Yeah.
And that was Mexican tar heroin, right? But it was too powerful, and it killed him. But nobody seemed too concerned. So this is part of my kind of, I guess, social awakening. When all of a sudden it's the pill form, and all of a sudden white boys and girls who are the children of white business executives start dying, it becomes important. Well, it was important when Jesus Chuy Lopez, who I first saw, was dead. That was important too.
Yeah,
it's important to me.
Yeah.
And so now hopefully we get more awareness. But to your question, the demographic of the victim has changed radically. What has been surprising to me is that the urgency to address it doesn't seem to be keeping up with the shift in the demographic of the victim. So I would like to think that's happening for sure, because more and more fentanyl is coming. And to your earlier point, it was a good observation. Initially, it was in the cocaine, in the heroin, which was already in a population. But then the population blew up with the counterfeit medicine thing. And so naturally, we saw much more poisonings, much more death from it. So the numbers have increased significantly. I mean, it's like nothing you've ever seen before, right? I mean, I was telling someone the other day, when crack first came on the scene in 1986, 87, I was working in San Francisco, and we saw it in Richmond, California, and Oakland, California, mostly in the black communities. And we didn't have a lot of African-American agents. So the next thing I knew, my dumb ass was over in Richmond working undercover trying to buy crack. But the reality was, if you had money, they would sell to you. They didn't care. But they were making crack in the 7-Eleven microwave. And you're like, what? Yeah, we take our Coke in there, our baking soda, our water. They're blowing up microwaves all over Richmond. And of course, the 7-Eleven guy's like, dude, you can't do that. And they point the gun at him, and then he'd back off, and they would make their crack. And they typically would burn out a microwave a day in 7-Elevens around the town. I watched that blow up. And then we fast forward.
You answered my question, how do they make crack? But
yeah. So, Richard Pryor used to laugh. I don't know, man. I was just cooking some Coke and it blew up on fire. I don't know. I was making chocolate chip cookies and all of a sudden my oven blew up and his face got on fire.
That's funny.
The best at self-deprecating humor, right? God rest his soul.
Yeah.
And so I saw that epidemic. So when fentanyl happened, it really wasn't a surprise to me. Right? People are drawn to that. And even though you could die from it, there are people who think they can tolerate fentanyl. They love the high of fentanyl. They love the high of almost dying. Okay, so I love the high of almost getting 300 pounds on the bench press, all right, at my advanced age. Almost dying is not a goal.
No.
Living is a goal. So having seen the crack epidemic in the late 80s and then this, it's so similar. But I feel like we didn't learn our lessons. You know, we started out with this, well, we'll just make the sentences 10 times worse for crack than it is for coke. And we've had those conversations. Okay, you know, 500 grams of coke, you know, it's X. But 5 grams of crack, you're going to prison for life. Okay, well, that's not very equitable. Let's make sure we have to have deterrence for sure. But we also have to work with the community. So I think, I mean, I'm proud of my old agency. DEA has just been smart all along. But at some point, demand reduction, and I never forget, I was taking a cab from the airport in Mexico City. I was in Guadalajara. Flew to the embassy in Mexico City. And I was taking a cab to the embassy. And the cab driver said, what are you doing? I said, you know, I work for the embassy. I'm a diplomat. And he looked at me like, Senor, with all due respect, you're not a diplomat. You must be DEA or CIA. Because I take diplomats on cab rides. You know, they all went to Harvard and Yale and wear funny suits and talk like really smart people. You sound more like a DEA agent or a CIA agent. I'm like, I'm just telling you, I'm a diplomat, dude. We kind of had this mutual understanding. Yeah, and we had a laugh. I said, well, since you went there, let me ask you a question. Like, how do you, as somebody who works for a living, how do you view the drug problem in the Western Hemisphere? He says, I view it as, if you guys would quit using it, we wouldn't have a problem. I said, but you grow it. He says, dude, for the most part, I never forget him saying, somos el trampolín. We're the trampoline between Colombia and the U.S. Coke stops here, refuels, and goes up there. We don't have a cocaine abuse problem in Mexico. We have a cocaine trafficking problem because of you guys. If you guys would treat the addicts and get them to stop buying the stuff, you could build a border wall with all these drugs. Yeah, that's a good point. Wow. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And what is being done right now to bring awareness to it?
Man, not enough. I can say that. I know when well, you're the same age as my daughter. When you guys were in school, you had the DARE program. And it's really just a matter of raising awareness, right? I'm not a big fan of...
That doesn't exist anymore, right?
I don't think so. Yeah. That's what I hear.
Yeah, we had Officer Leach, which is Brian Leach, the Ranger's sister. Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. That's why I remember, honestly.
You know, I always just say, if you just raise awareness and touch one person, right, you can save a life. But if we ignore it, it doesn't get better. That's not the answer. And so I'm a big fan of education, awareness, and that's what DARE did. I don't know what's being done today, but not enough. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, and I feel like the high school, the college, range, even I guess middle school, but I feel like they're so young there, they're not dabbling in that stuff. But I could be totally wrong. I don't have kids. I'm not a date. I haven't been in middle school in a long time, but high school and college definitely could use some education because they're experimenting with everything at that time, whether it's, cliff diving or drugs, they're experimenting. And I don't think they understand the seriousness of the issue that, you don't know where you're getting this from. And that's the thing like you, I'm straight edge right now, but with the marijuana dispensaries, it's, I almost look at it as like a good thing because at least it's government issued, checked. You're knowing it's safe in that sense, where it's like you're going to a smoke shop, corner store, you could have fentanyl in it, and that's case point proven with sadly I wish I knew her name, but I saw that TikTok video of her.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you say though, because one of the things that I've tried to start doing, and really the first podcast I did with you guys kind of gave me the I don't want to say brave me, but the confidence to go out and talk to more people. Know how to do it. And so recently a guy from the gym, he's a teacher at a middle school, a magnet school in New Haven, said, hey, would you come talk to our students? I said, I'm happy to. I'm happy to go anywhere if I can make a difference. But what am I going to say to 7th and 8th graders? And do you have a structured topic you want to talk about or free form? I just think it'd be cool. I think it would resonate with them. And I'm like, again.
What do you want me to talk about?
What is it?
Yeah.
What? He says, you'll see when you get there. I'm not a big fan of, it'll reveal itself. Just come.
Yeah.
Sometimes it reveals itself as not too good.
Yeah. This is a setup.
Yeah. Run. Which reminds me when I pulled in the parking lot and I flashed back to the day you and I went to the book signing.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that.
I did because I backed in. I thought, that rope, can I run over that rope in case something happens here? It Reminded me of the day I was with you. But anyway,
Yeah.
different story.
Yeah.
But my point was going to be, so I went to this middle school. It's a magnet school. There were about, 80 kids ushered into the cafeteria. And the teachers were standing around them kind of like, wardens. Mm-hmm. And they said, if you act up, we're going to take you out of here. I'm like, oh, let them act up a little bit because we got to know who each other is. Mm-hmm. We were all kids. But after the first couple of questions, the teacher said, Mr. Graham, can I just mention something? I said, sure. She says, these kids, we're in the hood, which I thought was kind of scary to say, but she said, they know it. This is a tough neighborhood. These kids are bright students, but they've seen more by the time they're 12 than most adults will see in their lifetime. Mm-hmm. So when they ask you, if I walk upon a shooting or a drug overdose or a rape or a drug deal, what should I do? They want to know what to do because they've already seen it. And you have to tell them. Mm-hmm. I was like, on the one hand, this is so sad to have to have this conversation. On the other hand, how lucky for all of us that I get to share with them some things that they can do to preserve their own life and potentially mitigate some horrible thing. Mm-hmm. So to your point, junior high, I used to think junior high was too young also. Mm-hmm. But today's junior high kids, they're more mature than I was at 24.
Yeah.
The reality is.
Yeah.
And so let's not treat them like they're not.
Yeah.
Because honestly, by the time you get to high school,
it's over basically.
They're doing what they want to do.
Yeah.
Unless you were raised in some closet somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Like Renee.
Well, I'm not gonna, I wouldn't say names, but
just joking.
There's pros to that.
I was just joking. No, of course.
No. I just think we need to keep raising awareness.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like that form of you going to schools and, talking to, a seminar of kids, I guess you could say, like bring the whole grades in, have them talk. I think that would be good for you and for the issue at hand, and getting some more information out there for kids. Because, I mean, it's tough. Like, when I was young and going to parties or whatever in high school in that area, people were experimenting a lot. And I know they are now still, obviously. I'm not stupid, but, and luckily I wasn't, I know Tony doesn't want to believe this, but I wasn't a follower. So I never did some of the sketchy, shady stuff that people were doing. And like, you get it. I was super into basketball. Tony makes fun of me. Like I was the kid at certain parties with the basketball in my hand. And like if shit was getting weird,
Tony might have mentioned that, but
I just put my headphones on and I'm just like, dribbling and just hanging out at those types of events. And when things got too much, I would leave, and I don't think there are enough kids that are doing that now or at any time because you want to be cool or whatever the case may be. And with this fentanyl issue, it's like, and not to say it wasn't dangerous then, but it's just scary to think, for parents, I might not see my kid ever again alive.
It's got to be frightening. And, for those of us that we all play sports, right? One and done meant you're out of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now one and done means you got exposed to fentanyl.
Yeah.
And it might not even be, when Rohypnol first started, roofies. Guys were using to drop in people's drinks and do it clandestinely.
That's how I met Tony.
Yeah, I'm sure.
With me.
Oh. So they're doing that with fentanyl, right? And so you didn't intentionally knowingly do that. Mm-hmm. With me, I drank a little bit in college. Mm-hmm. Then I just realized I couldn't be ready to play, even go to practice on Sunday if I was drinking. Mm-hmm. So I pretty much quit drinking. Mm-hmm. And at DEA, that's a really fun group of guys. And you do a big search warrant, and when you're scared to death and you survived, you want to celebrate.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't want to drive my G-Ride drunk, wreck it, and get 30 days on the beach. I could barely make my payments with my full paycheck. Mm-hmm. If I didn't get paid for 2 weeks, I'd be in a tent somewhere. So that's when I quit drinking. And they would kind of make fun of me, like, oh, hey, Aaron needs another cranberry juice. Yeah, okay, I'll take the cranberry juice. Then I would try to pay at the end of the day. If there were 10 of us and our bill was $100, I put in $10. You can't pay $10 for cranberry juice.
Yeah.
Now, it was all innocent joking or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was done drinking. Yeah. Because I didn't see how it was going to benefit me. Mm-hmm. But today, like to your point, peer pressure is hard. Mm-hmm. And you don't get to smoke a little marijuana. Dude, I grew up in the 70s, all right? People like to joke about the 70s.
Yeah.
I'm the real thing.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
But it was marijuana.
Yeah.
And it was marijuana being grown in guys' backyards.
Exactly.
In their bedroom.
Yeah.
Right? It was 2% THC.
Yep.
Now forget about it.
It's crazy.
Forget about it. And nobody wants to smoke, 2% THC marijuana anyways.
Mm-hmm.
They want coke, they want meth, they want whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It just leads to awful outcomes.
Yeah.
And it's frightening. I know my son Jack, who I remember he came home from junior high one day and he says, Dad, some girl asked me if I owned anything that didn't have a Nike name on it or Adidas or Under Armour shirt. I'm like, what do you think she meant? She says, I don't know. It's so strange. I'm like, oh. What it means is everything you wear is sported like Michael with his basketball.
Yeah.
That's where he lived in that world.
Yeah.
But and he didn't care. Mm-hmm. He was just happy being home watching a ball game on TV than being with the cool kids at the party.
Yeah.
Now Karen, she was concerned about you got to be more social, be in the group. Fair too. But I'm grateful every day that our kids
are safe, healthy, and exactly.
When we came back from Mexico, one quick funny story. Jack was almost 3. We got a babysitter for the first time. We were in Tucson, and so we went out and came back, and we said, how'd it go? And the girl said, oh, it went fine. But she had this look on her face like something was wrong. Well, what do you mean fine? Well, I just, Jack wanted to play with the Legos. And I'm like, oh, that seems reasonable. How'd that go? She says, well, he built this house, and he put a wall around it. And he says, here's what we're going to do. You're the drug dealer in the house, and I'm the DEA agent, and I'm going to do a raid on your house.
That's hilarious.
Karen looks at me like, I told you those are not appropriate bedtime stories.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the way our kids grew up. And I'm not a fan of this is your brain on drugs and be afraid, be very afraid.
Yeah. I feel like that doesn't work.
It didn't work for me. That's why I said it, right?
Yeah.
But I would say, look, these things are dangerous. You need to make good decisions. I love you. I want you to be here tomorrow. I just think honesty and sincerity works. But I think we have a gap today where people aren't telling their kids that, or kids aren't hearing that, or they don't believe it. And the peer pressure is aggressive and really something.
Well, it's now with cyberbullying.
Oh,
that's a whole nother avenue. I know it's, I think a healthy dose of bullying is okay. I know it sounds bad, but I think it gets a little, because I've been bullied. Everybody's been bullied.
Well, I know Tony bullies you.
Oh my gosh,
practically daily.
Oh, you have no idea. Yeah. Honestly,
you probably deserve it though.
Yeah, 50% of the time. No, but that's what I'm talking about. Like that playful. That's the good bullying. You know what I mean? Where
it's healthy.
Exactly, and it's not like he's being like he actually hates me or whatever, and like wants to bring harm to me. It's like toughening you up almost.
Well, we played sports, right?
Right.
You can't play sports and have rabbit ears.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're going to ride you until you miss that next shot.
Exactly.
Until you miss that next pitch. Until you miss that next block. That's the goal.
Right.
So you learn to ignore that.
Yeah.
You also learn to give it out.
Yep. Exactly. Right? Yeah. Of course.
But that makes you stronger.
Yes.
And as an athlete, if you don't learn to get over it, then you got to go do something else because they're going to ride you.
And I'm glad you said get over it, because that's where I'm bringing in the cyberbullying, is like with real bullying where these bullies are being mean to just be mean and they want to bring harm to your life in whatever mental, physical, emotional way. Then it gets carried into at home. You can't even leave now if you're a kid. It comes to you here too. You see it on your people are talking about
everyone
you.
sees it.
Yeah, everybody sees it. Like people will post stuff and it's just so I could see it where it's like people know that, kids know that that's a thing. Let me do this hit of marijuana right now. That's laced with fentanyl. They don't know it. You know what I mean? At the party. That's my point. Is
get
like
my street cred.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the convergence between the bullying and the substance abuse is real. Right now, all of a sudden, my life is awful. How do I either tolerate this so I can? So it's just take this drug; it'll help bring you out of your depression, or
yeah, that's another one.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, that's another one.
The drug will get you through that, right? I don't feel good about myself because I'm being bullied. I'll just take this drug that Jimmy takes, that Susan takes.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden, it's not just a drug. It's fentanyl. Or you want to fit in. The peer pressure's been really aggressive. They're riding you every day on the computer.
I think that first point is even more prominent today.
Self-medication.
Yeah, because, kids have, nowadays they're depressed and this and that, and they're taking ADD meds, all these things. And, that's not working for you? Don't worry, I got this. Like, that's a great point.
Yeah, no, I mean... And we know medicine works for the right patient.
Yeah.
When it's the right medicine.
Right.
But part of right means a doctor prescribed it to you based on your legitimate medical
your blood
needs.
work and everything. Yeah.
But once you start self-medicating, and depression, I thought depression was something happened in the 30s and 40s. I don't know if something happened to you psychologically, right? We grew up, we were depressed.
Yeah.
We got beat. It sucked.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work harder.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm depressed.
Yeah.
I was annoyed.
Yeah.
But now, and I just think the depression is, I'm not a mental health professional, but I know that it just wears you down. Right? And it's hard. And speaking of that, a totally different subject, but when I see the suicide rate with our military veterans and now our law enforcement, active duty and veterans, it's heartbreaking. And you see the suicides, even as we know, somebody from your class, the pressure today is really bad. And the thing I worry about is self-medicating. Oh yeah, but I looked it up on WebMD. If I take this, I'll feel better. If you make it to tomorrow, but maybe you should go see a doctor.
Yeah.
Might be a good place to start.
No, it's true. It's crazy because, and then you don't, I mean, they always say this, but it's really true. Like, you don't know who's really suffering to that extent to take their lives. And I had a kid that I went to undergrad with. He was on the baseball team. And we became close because I'd go work out after practice and he would be also working out. And we at first didn't get along, which is funny. And we were in classes and stuff. And then from there, we would hang out in the gym and weight room. And then we'd go to the soccer field at UB. I don't know if you've ever driven by. It's nice, and sit on the bench there and talk about life and our faith and all this different stuff. And we became really close friends. And I think it was maybe 2 years out of undergrad, but in that time frame, I get a message from someone I went to school with. Did you hear about so-and-so? And I'm like, no, what happened? Yeah. Took his life. And it was a whole conspiracy with him, with how he died. And because he was a, he was the party guy. Everybody loved him. But someone, people think he might have gotten mixed with the wrong crowd back home type of a thing. And, something like that happened. But regardless of what it is, he's not here today.
Right.
And he was struggling mentally with his mental health. And even as recent as someone we both know at the gym, I don't know if it's right to mention him.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention his name. But
Yeah. I mean, I wear his wristband. But it's just so sad because that kid, is it okay to say his name? I don't know. I don't want to be respectful.
We can always
You don't
bleep
have
it
to,
out
I
if you
think.
want, I
Yeah,
guess.
true.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, Casey, you know, he my brother even was very close with him, and because they worked in the same business as well.
Right.
And his father, I mean, I see him all the time walking at the treadmill over there, but where we got close was at Donut Inn. Just joking, making fun of the workers being lazy together and all this stuff. Just, and I didn't even put two and two together until, honestly, it happened that he was his father. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know. Stopa, you know what I mean? And I was just, you never think he was at that place, as an outsider looking in. And we've had talks since, his father and I, about where he was at, and I guess he was, as he told people, but it just goes to show, even if you do talk about it, sometimes you need even more help, you
got to listen.
Yeah.
I talked to Jeffrey about it afterwards, and he was very transparent about it. He knew he was suffering,
Yeah.
but he'd have these good days. He would tell
Yeah.
and then he said, he was lying.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have good days.
Yeah.
But he knew I'd worry about it if he told me he was still having bad days.
Yeah.
But I just heard what a rock star he was. He built that business.
Yeah.
He was a broker. He had people to work for him.
Yeah.
But when COVID happened and real estate slowed down and interest rates went up and business started to slow, he was still a rock star. That I went to the
Wake.
2.5 hours to get in.
Down the street.
Dude, 2.5 hours to get in the funeral home.
Yeah.
And I never saw so many 20-year-old men crying
I know.
when they would come out of the funeral home.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's a good example of, I don't typically name them just because I don't know that well, but here's a good example of that didn't have to happen.
Yeah, of course.
And it's nobody's fault. But we just have to listen. We have to listen. I have a very, very good friend who retired FBI agent, and he sits on a suicide hotline every other weekend. He's just an amazing guy. Mm-hmm. That's what he does. He just talks to people. Mm-hmm. He could talk to you till the cows come home. Mm-hmm. He can engage you. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that's why he was a successful FBI agent. Mm-hmm. He just answers the phone, talks to people.
Yeah.
And we all need to do that. We need to talk to people because there's so much bad stuff going on, and don't be afraid to say it, right? Like, we love you. We don't want something to happen to you. Call me if you need something. Mm-hmm. I will answer the phone. And
the brain is a crazy place because we don't know what imbalances are in there too with things that you've done in your past, that maybe haven't shown side effects until, years later or things like that. So it's a very tricky place. And I always say, definitely have people that you could trust to tell whatever you need to, because just even getting certain things out helps a ton.
Well, the other thing is the male brain is a dumber thing. Right? As a male, I'm confident in that.
Yeah.
And when somebody says, I'm not depressed, well, it doesn't mean you have less testosterone or something shorter on you than
Tony,
somebody
you hear
else.
That?
Yeah, Tony.
Yes, it does.
But you might want, you mentioned like a chemical imbalance, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you have diabetes, you take medicine. Mm-hmm. If you have asthma, you take medicine. If you have whatever, you take medicine. So if you have a chemical imbalance, there's a medicine for that.
Yeah.
If you have ADD, you can take a medicine, and you're normal, right? You want to be where everybody else is.
Yeah.
But if you're a macho dumbass, excuse my language, right? I don't need medicine because I'm not broken. Well, you're not broken. You have a different chemical imbalance that we could address, right? But I know people won't take the medicine because they think it's a sign of weakness. Well, yeah, but then they're at the end of a rope somewhere in somebody's backyard. That's an imbalance. So don't be afraid to listen to people and talk to people. And if a legitimate doctor says, you should think about this. This medicine will make you feel better. And of course, then you'd be like my mom, God rest her soul. She was diagnosed with depression after my father died. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Got a prescription, took it, felt better, quit taking it.
Yeah.
I'm like, Mom, it doesn't cure you, it treats you. Yeah, but I felt better. I said, yeah, but you're acting like a crazy person right now. You're not better.
Yeah.
Well, I quit taking it because I felt better. You felt better because you took it.
You're taking it. Yeah, yeah.
It seems so commonsensical to the outsider, right?
Yeah.
But the person doesn't want to do it. But again, now we get back to, it always comes full circle, I feel like. Well, if that works for him, I'm going to buy some Xanax.
Yeah.
No, dude, that's why you go talk to a doctor. Xanax might not be right for you for various reasons.
Right.
Like you said earlier, your blood work, other...
even genetics, yeah.
Right. So go see a doctor.
Yeah.
And, it also brings us back to the inequity of our healthcare system.
Right.
Right. People need access to healthcare, need access to affordable medicine.
I was going to say it's expensive.
But that's one of the things that I've really been working on lately is raising awareness about how to get access to affordable medicine. There's so many things that people are unaware of. People want to, I'm going to need a better deal on my medicine, so I'm going to go online. Well, www.druglord is not our pharmacy. But you don't know, right? And so the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy, one of my favorite trade organizations in the world, and they kind of oversee all the boards of pharmacies in every state. They created a program called Safe.Pharmacy. And Safe.Pharmacy allows you to find a legitimate, authentic, online mail-order pharmacy. And everybody's competing on price. And if they're a mail-order pharmacy, they don't have an infrastructure, buildings, they can offer a better price. But if you get an email from www.mikesamazingpharmacy.com and the prices are just 10% lower, that sounds great. Yeah, well, probably because Mike's a fraud. You can go to Safe.Pharmacy, type in mikesamazingpharmacy.com. It says, no, that's a fraudulent pharmacy. Don't buy there. Here's some legitimate pharmacies. That can save a life and compete on price. There's another program called MAT.org, M-A-T.org. This is what they call a patient assistance program. So if you earn less than X amount of dollars and you have a family and what have you, you get your medicine for free or at a discount. So I don't know about you, but when you're watching a sports game and commercial comes on for disease X, and if you're having trouble affording your medicine, go to okay.
They do that with the side effects too, which is hilarious. I'm like,
okay, so I didn't grasp that. I'm already struggling.
Yeah.
That didn't help me.
Yep.
But so I tell them MAT.org. Virtually every major legitimate pharmacy or pharmaceutical manufacturer in the world has a patient assistance program. If you can't afford your medicine, they want you to have your medicine. So I tell everybody, I speak at these events all over the world, matt.org. Type it in.
That's an easy one to remember, too.
It's pretty easy. I mean, we try not to give Matt over here too much credit. It's one T.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was at an event in Los Angeles, 500 cops, prosecutors, FBI agents, DEA agents in the LAPD auditorium. And I said, if you guys don't remember anything else I said today, I was the last speaker of the day to talk about investigations, but also about matt.org. I said, please remember safe.pharmacy and matt.org. You can save a life. And I know you guys save lives every day, but you never know. So we get done, we're cleaning up, and all of a sudden these two female deputies from LA Sheriff's Department came up, and one was crying, and we had lost some mutual friends from COVID recently, and I was just scared to death they were going to tell me about somebody else who had died. And I said, what's up? And the one deputy said, my sister takes this certain medicine for diabetes, and supposed to take it every day, but she's only been taking it every other day because she can't afford it. And when you said matt.org, I texted her. I said, hey, check this out, matt.org. I don't know anything about it, but a friend of mine just mentioned it, blah, blah. In the 20 minutes from the time you said that to us standing here, she just texted me and said, I just got access to that medicine for free. You might have saved my sister's life. Well, I get goosebumps telling you that story right now. Like, yeah. But who's heard of it? You guys probably hadn't heard of matt.org.
No, not at all.
Right. Nobody has.
Or save.pharmacy.
Right. Safe.pharmacy. And these are big, legitimate, really great resources. And they're both I actually worked with both organizations to make the collateral materials in English and Spanish. And so all the work I do in the Hispanic community, I've been working with the Attorney General's office in Nevada, huge Hispanic community, and a huge bodega community.
I thought he was going to say Bulgarian. I was like, yeah, there is a huge Bulgarian community. There is.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But people don't know that the medicines are counterfeit in these bodegas. But they also don't know where to get medicine. And they're also, scared about the immigration status. And how do I go get my medicine? And I don't want to end up in the hospital. So I'm buying my medicine in a bodega. Well, like I said on election night when I was doing these panels for Epic Times in Spanish, I said, look, if they're selling piñatas in the store, they're not a pharmacy. That's how you know. That's a clue.
Yeah. That's the giveaway.
So the Attorney General, who is just an amazing man in Nevada, Aaron Ford, we did some great investigations, and then he had a healthcare fair, if you will, on a weekend, principally designed for the Latin community. And they had all these materials I had designed available. They had 350 people show up. The pictures were awesome. People don't typically engage on that thing. They were there. And of course, the agents at the Attorney General's office are they're the cops that you want to deal with. They really care about the health and well-being of the community.
Right.
They'll put you in jail if you're a bad guy.
Yeah.
But if they have an opportunity to save you and prevent you from going there, they'll do that too. So he actually promoted safe.pharmacy and matt.org to that community. It was a huge positive outcome. And so that's why if I don't, I'll take an opportunity to talk about those things anytime I can, because there's so many people out there who don't have access
100%
to safe, authentic, affordable medicine, equitable health care. Megan likes to make fun of me and call me a privileged white male boomer. And of course, as a guy, I initially would have to push back on the privilege thing until I kind of grasped the concept that I'm really blessed, right? Grew up with two parents. They both had insurance. I got to go to college. I got to play sports. I got to have good jobs. When people shot at me, they missed. And then I started meeting more people. I know it seems like a cavalier thing, but it's true. And you only have to get shot at a few times and they miss. You're really grateful for people with bad aim, or they're really nervous. And you really realize you are privileged. And so then that is an obligation to share that with other people.
You also worked hard.
No, I initially when I pushed back against Megan, I said, look, I'll take your privilege insult and I'll double down on I was a finance major who spoke fluent Spanish walking the Mexican border at midnight for $12,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's some privilege, dude.
Yeah.
She says, yeah, Dad, I know, but you got to go to college.
Yeah.
And you had a job, and you had benefits. And during COVID, she came home. We lived in New York City. She came home to stay with us for a few months. And we had these amazing conversations. And it's when she convinced me that, yeah, I got it. So I'm happy to tell my macho knucklehead friends, dude, you're blessed.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to share some of that with others.
Yeah.
That's the reason I'm here. I just think if we affect one person, touch one person, change one person's trajectory, they'll do that for somebody else. Then the synergistic effect is life-changing. And that's why I think what you guys are doing is so important when you interview doctors and others about this stuff.
Yeah, I appreciated it. Do you want to talk about the border?
Well,
I don't know if you want to talk about it. I know.
What's your question? I mean, I'm happy to share my thoughts. I don't have any solutions.
No, of course I know
Yeah.
that. I mean, geez, I mean,
Who does?
I know, yeah, exactly. I mean, just like with the fentanyl, there's not one solution or whatever, but just is it really as big of an issue? I guess my question is as I think it is, or certain people think it is, and do you think there's not enough attention on what has happened in the last couple years? And I'm not, it's not anything political or anything like that, but just strictly the border. How much of an impact has that made in a negative sense with, like, let's say the drugs and the drug cartels and these things crossing into our border, certain people?
Yeah. So the border's complex, right? And and I grew up on the border. So
And when they say it's open, what does that even mean? Like,
well, I'll tell you what it means. If you drive along the border, sometime you guys should rent a motorhome and fly to San Diego and drive to Texas along the border.
yeah.
And for part of it, you'll see nothing, right? You'll see these waterways or large canyons, which are essentially a border. They just see wide open stretches where you just run across. They just see these big pieces of these walls that are hard to get over. And you'll see that for 3,000 miles. I happen to be I'm a registered independent, so I can hate everybody equally and try to be objective about political policy. But I think if I'm objective, you can't have criminals intent on murder, mayhem, and drug trafficking just coming to the United States willy-nilly.
Yeah.
That's a problem. On the other hand, our country was built
On immigration.
by immigrants
Yeah.
and doing great things. You know what's interesting? In America today, there are 5 million Hispanic business owners. They generate over $800 billion to the U.S. economy. Hispanics start businesses at 3 times the rate of any other demographic in America. And women, Hispanics, create businesses faster than men. Well, that tells me we need more Hispanic women and men in America starting businesses that employ people and pay taxes and raise their children to be Americans. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So let's not just stop them because their last name ends in a vowel. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Now, if they're a criminal, let's figure out how to put a boomerang on them, right? Send them back. I think that makes sense. I think there's a opportunity for a reasonable immigration policy. And, on election night, one of the things that I was asked to speak about on Epic Times was the immigration problem. Okay, well, I'm a proponent of a good immigration system, which means let's invite people here to make America better, stronger, economically more successful. But if you're a criminal, it's sometimes a problem, right? When every time somebody dies, and if the murder was committed by an illegal immigrant, then that becomes a case for the dangers of illegal immigration. Well, that's true. But Tony is going to kill somebody someday.
Yeah.
We know. And he's a white guy.
And it's, everyone's, like you said, everyone's that's come here in the last 100 years, let's say, their family immigrated here. Like, I'm just the closest to it, for example, for me with my mom coming from Bulgaria. But Tony's great-grandparents came here from Italy. Renee's grandparents came here from Italy. I mean, we're all immigrants, but I do think there has to be a legitimate way to have immigration come and immigrants come into this country. Like, my mom obviously met my stepfather and did the whole process, and it took her 8 years. I remember that. I got pulled out of 5th grade, and she had to learn the whole history of this country, and she cried when she got her citizenship because she was so happy, and it was a special, beautiful moment. My mom loves America. She'll kill me maybe if I say this, but more than Bulgaria, I think. You're right there. Like, it depends on the day for her, but she's very proud to be an American citizen, and so I don't think immigration, like you said, is a bad thing. It should be welcomed, but there has to be just a better way of doing things.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, new immigrants to America are kind of like people who quit smoking. They just hate smoking now. When you come to America, you just love America because it's this opportunity where you really can do things that you could never do at home. And I have just so many immigrant friends who came here from abroad, got their status. They're so happy to be here. And I think it's great. And we need to invite that. We need to encourage that. And to your earlier point, I work a lot with Homeland Security and Customs Border Protection and what have you. They're just incredible investigators. And on the counterfeit drug thing, they're really leading America and leading the world, Homeland Security and Customs Border Protection. But when they get called away to go down and process immigrants who are coming across illegally, now they're not doing investigations. That's some very life-saving, life-threatening investigations.
Yeah.
So we don't have enough of them, right? So, I guess at the end of the day, I'm a huge proponent of a regulated, smart immigration system.
Yeah.
Let's get all the best and brightest from every country.
Yeah.
Right? And make all of us better.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm a huge fan, and I belong to the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and I go to these annual meetings, and I get an opportunity to speak occasionally, but they have these business owners who immigrated from other countries. I'm in tears every time I'm there. They're talking about where they came from, what they're doing, how they've made just changed their life forever because they were able to come here and do these things. And I think this is who we should have doing the immigration commercial. This person who came here and changed their life, changed their trajectory, changed America for the better. And the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, they invited me down this last fall at their annual meeting to speak on a panel on cartel trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking, illegal cigarette trafficking. Okay, so we can probably all agree, criminals, stay where you're at.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody else who wants to come here and take advantage of everything we have to offer and make everybody better and stronger,
Build the
please
community,
come.
yeah.
Please come.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we'll see. It's a crazy time we're living in, but I'm hopeful. I am.
You have to be.
Yeah.
Because the alternative is to either roll up under the bed in the fetal position, which is not productive, or be negative and loud about it, which is also not productive.
Yeah, no, it's true. Because if you're talking, you're not listening. So
Thank you.
Right.
Somebody said one day, many years ago, God gave you one mouth and 2 ears for a reason.
Yeah, that's good.
Right?
Yeah.
Keep your mouth shut. My dad would say, "You can't hear me if your mouth is running."
Yeah, yeah.
We had a batting cage in our backyard, right? And he was an amazing coach. God rest his soul. But if he was trying to tell us something, we were talking. He like, "So I'll wait till you get done, then I'll tell you."
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Dad.
Yeah.
He had a way of, he never once put his hands on us.
Yeah.
But you felt like he had spanked you 50 times when he said that. Okay, quit
Tony,
hitting
you
me.
hear that?
Quit hitting me.
You have
I
to
hear
keep
you.
yelling, all right?
Yeah. So, so we have to listen.
Yeah. No, I agree. Where can people find you? I know you don't really care about social media, but just to get maybe if they want to reach out and have you speak and that kind of stuff.
So I'm on Instagram. You can look at Aaron Graham on Instagram and find me. And I really, I don't like a mutual friend of ours, Jim, wants to create a homepage for me to do more of this. So I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with you.
Yeah.
But I'm not comfortable going beyond that yet.
Yeah.
But I think if you find me on Instagram or send a note to you guys here.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like if I can get a chance to share anything that changes somebody's trajectory, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I at some point I want to retire from 60 hours a week of working. I love it now, but I told a friend of mine the other day, he said, "Dude, when are you going to retire?" I said, "I don't know. I got these great cases going."
I know. I feel like you're
He
never
says,
gonna.
Yeah, he says you'll always have great cases going, but
Yeah.
at some point you've earned the opportunity to do something else. I said, "Yeah, but if I like what I'm doing, well, that's a good point. And not everybody loves their job."
Yeah, exactly. And
So-
it keeps you young.
Yeah.
It really does. Like movement and working, but like you said, it has to be something you love. You can't be just, working.
No, I'd be retired.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to get up hating my life.
Yes, exactly.
I sent an email to a friend of mine last night about some information I'd gotten, and she wrote back, "Dude, you get more phone calls from more different people than oh yeah, well I have 40 years of making friends and relationships and what have you, and it's a beautiful thing, and I like what I do. But what I would like to do, and I was talking to this guy in the gym today who has a social media company. I have to introduce you guys in the gym. Hip Hop 1001 is his website, and he says, "Dude, would you come talk to my kids?" He's a coach and a mentor, and I said, "I want to do more of that when I retire."
Yeah.
But I'd like to start working in that direction now because, I live here. I live in Bridgeport.
Yeah, there's a bunch of schools and everything in the
Ton
state.
of opportunities, and I just think, and part of it's attitude, right? I think if you're positive and you promote positivity and you really want to help somebody, they'll reach out to you.
Yeah.
And I hope that anybody calls here and says, "Dude, don't ever have that guy on again." Don't. But if they say, "Can you put me in touch?" Put me in touch.
Definitely.
I trust you guys and love you guys, and I think what you're doing is so important. It's no reason I would come back.
Thanks. We're definitely going to do this again. You'll be our first three-peat.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
It'll burn your building down.
No. This was great. I appreciate you coming in. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We love you, and we'll see you next time.